Good morning, YouTube. It is 10 a.m. in the great state of Texas, and we're doing an epoxy project today, of course, because we love epoxy on this channel. However, I will start this video off saying this is probably one of my largest failures, but one of my most favorite projects. So what are we doing here? We had leftover epoxy. You've seen me do some of these layered bowls in other projects. If you go back a couple of months ago, you guys saw me do a similar project like this where I called it the Joker Bowl, where it was a purple and green bowl. This is actually leftover epoxy from one of those same projects. So I had this small little bowl here, and obviously by the thumbnail you can tell that, hey, this doesn't look anything like the size of the bowl at the end, which is very true. However, we are going to have some catastrophic failures, and I'm going to have to adapt and overcome. So what we did initially was start with these two layers, two different projects, two different layers. Obviously you can see that here. We have some glitter. One is more of an aqua green on the bottom, and the top layer is left over from the Slimer bowl that I did. And put it in the pressure pot, 4.5 hours. Everything is looking good. Took it out. I was like, hey, this is a nice piece of epoxy. This is going to turn out really well. I'm super excited, thinking, hey, we're not going to have any problems. However, I have grown to learn every project that I do, you're going to have some problems. And this project definitely was no different. So once we got everything set up, took my favorite glue gun that I absolutely love this thing. I'm going to brag about it every time I use it. Glued everything up using a copious amount of glue. Way too much glue. Probably didn't need that much, but I'm all about this glue gun. Absolutely love it. So got the waste block on there, pressed it down real well. Now we're going to put the faceplate on, and this is where the problems start. So a lot of these projects that you see, they're out of order in the sequence that they were done. So my major mistake here was I've been using the same screws for the past 25 projects, and I did not adhere those screws down very well. And you'll see here in a little bit that that will be a problem. So we got it on the lathe, got everything going real well. I'm thinking, you know what, quick, easy project on the weekend. Not going to have a lot of issues with it. So here we are getting that superficial layer off the top, which we usually do. You can see in the corner there, we're getting really good ribbons, good material off, not getting any of that spray or those crazy, shards of glass coming off of it. So the epoxy set up really well. And now all we're doing is getting the layers off, coming back, hitting it with the round and the flat skew. And I'm pretty confident in this bowl. I'm thinking, you know what, this is going to turn out pretty good. This is going to be quick and easy, like I said. And here I am just adjusting it, again, hitting it with that flat skew. You can see my hands are just covered in epoxy. My shirt's covered in epoxy, and it's basically all over the place. So I'm pretty happy with it up at this point, and now I'm going to start doing the tannin, which immediately, you can see there, we're having problems. And it wobbled off. So the faceplate unscrewed, and what had happened was that some of the screws that I re-entered, because I had to go back off and take off the faceplate, which you didn't see on camera. So the faceplate is actually off of the waste block. So I went back and adjusted it, and when I did that, I ended up screwing into the epoxy too hard, and it broke. So this is me taking the waste block or the faceplate off for the second time, if you understood what I was saying. So ended up with just chunks of epoxy. I'm going, okay, this is going to be a problem, but we have to salvage this project. And I've never cut epoxy on the bandsaw before, so this was my first time. And this is a Ryobi bandsaw. And I'm not poo-pooing on Ryobi. Most of my tools are Ryobi, but I'm thinking, this might be an issue with this bandsaw. But hey, took my time, went real slow, and cut it up into chunks. Because the plan is, next scene, is to take the epoxy and put it around the leftover chunks of the bowl. Because obviously we couldn't make a bowl out of that. So the plan is to make another bowl using epoxy that's already there. So went ahead, hit it with the initial purple, clear kind of color. Was initially thinking that I had enough epoxy. I did not plan on doing a second layer. I was hoping that that would have been enough, but as you'll see here, obviously we're not all the way up to that wooden plate that's on the top. So ended up coming back, hitting it with even darker epoxy, which turned out really cool. I love this color. I love the swirl. It looks absolutely amazing. So this was actually a failure that turned into something absolutely amazing. So 4.5 hours in the pressure pot. Look at that thing. It's gorgeous. So we got that sparkle from the green left over, and then camera is doing that thing where it zooms in and out. But hey, you can see all the cool colors in it in that shot right there. And absolutely love this blank. So at this point, I'm super excited. I'm going, okay, this might have been a screw up, but we have enough epoxy, and we might be able to salvage this into something awesome. So here we are, getting everything set up. You already seen me put plenty of base plates on, so you didn't need to see that. Made sure that it was screwed down appropriately this time, and got it in the lathe. And I'm like, okay, let's go to town on this thing. So same thing as the initial project, which was to take off that superficial layer. And I'm trying to take my time. I did real shallow passes with this because I've never done an epoxy within an epoxy that was from a different project. Like, I've done layers, but what I'm saying is I've never had chunks of epoxy inside of epoxy that I've poured. So I don't know how that's going to react on the lathe. So that kind of had me worried initially. But from what you can see here, overall, going fairly well, not having a lot of issues up until this point. Just, again, doing our basic thing where we're trying to get the superficial layer off so we can hit it with a round carbide tool. And then you can see there, looking pretty good, even and flat, not getting any wobble. So now we're ready to hit it with the round carbide tool. And you can see that we're getting really good shavings off. The epoxy is flying off. We're not getting that glass and those shards coming off the blank. So always a good sign. So then we're just doing some touch-up work where we're trying to get the lip of the bowl taken care of. And now we're going to hit it on the bottom, trying to get everything nice and even. And I'm sorry for the camera work there. The thing is, when you get really good ribbons like that flying off the lathe, they end up hitting the lens of the camera and just blocks the entire view. So I'm literally having to stop like every 5 seconds to clean off the camera. So I inadvertently had an accidental situation where you saw that little chip there. Real easy to take off, not a problem. I was probably going to like gouge that out anyway. So that went relatively easy. Didn't have any major issues getting that shard that flew off taken care of. So once we did all of that, then we came back, hit it with a flat skew, which this is probably my only hang up into this point. I end up hitting it with the flat skew to even everything out, but it ends up scarring up the epoxy, and you'll see a little bit later in the sanding that it was a little bit of an issue. So now we're ready for our second attempt at making a tannin, and this part went really easy. You know, of course, you saw the pine waste block that's in there, so this part went really smooth. Didn't have any issues with that. Sized it up in the chuck, and now we're just going to adjust the camera, the banjo, and even out the bottom portion of the bowl so we can go ahead and flip it onto the chuck itself. And this part went really smooth, real easy and quick, not a lot of problems, making sure everything was adjusted and fitted. Flipped it, and now we're just taking care of that lip of the bowl, not having any real major issues up until this point, other than the camera getting splattered with all of those ribbons, which is clearly a problem. But superficial layer came right off, didn't have any chipping, didn't have anything catastrophic happen up until that point. And I'll be honest, the rest of the bowl goes really smooth up into this point, and I think I've said up until this point about 20 times. My apologies. So again, hitting it with the skew, getting everything nice and even, and then zoomed out just a little bit so you guys can see a little bit better, and so I won't have to clean the camera every 5 seconds. So this part, relatively easy, rounded, nice shape, nice and even. But again, I was worried about those scratches that might have been there, but I'm thinking in my head we can sand them out. So here we are doing the gouging part. You can see that my hand there, getting beautiful ribbons off, getting beautiful chunks of that pine board taken care of, really taking our time to work everything out nice and evenly. And the gouging part, went really easy up into this point. Like I said, you can usually tell I'm having a really easy time by the amount of time it takes me to hit the depth that I'm usually looking for. And I get it depending on the speed of the camera and how much I speed it up on film, but you could tell the chisels are just working through that epoxy real nice and smooth. And you can see the ribbons that are on my hands, that you can tell everything up into this point is going relatively smooth. And here we are at a different angle, just working off a lot of the side edges. And I've learned my lesson about using the bowl gouge on the sides. I've learned that if it's just a majority of the epoxy left, just hit it with a round carbide tool. that is so much easier than trying to hit it with the bowl gouge, in my opinion. And I'm just kidding. I keep getting hit in the face, having to get in and out of frame, obviously, because, hey, we're getting good ribbons off. So when it's hitting me in the face like that, that's usually a good sign that you know what you're doing, at least a little bit. So did that back and forth, trying to get to a nice depth of the bowl, trying to work it down as far as we can before we ended up, being satisfied with where we were at with this project. And here we are, different angle. You can see my goofy ass trying to, basically do the same thing there. And wearing all of my safety equipment, obviously. And I really need to get a new face shield because there's so many scratches on that thing from getting hit in the face for the past 2 years that it's getting a little bit more difficult to see. So I'm a little bit redundant. I wear eye protection and a face shield. Always just good policy to do that. You can never be too safe, even though I do some things that some woodworkers would question. But overall, stay safe, people. So here we are at the end of the project. Not the end of the project, but we're here at the end. Bowl looks, even without the sanding, it looks absolutely spectacular in my opinion. Here are all the shavings. This is just from one bowl, and you couldn't see it there, but the shavings themselves had the same similar color to the bowl. Really happy the way that turned out, and it's just absolutely covered. So we got everything cleaned up, hitting it with the sanding 340, going all the way up to 1500, and then we're going to hit it with the micro mesh. Get a little bit of my shoulder there, obviously. By the way, this is East Coast resin, if I didn't mention what type of resin we're using. East Coast resin on this one. And then we're going to come back, hit it with a wet sanding here, just a little bit. Boom. Typical transition. It looks absolutely gorgeous. Absolutely love this bowl. Like I said, it went from failure to absolute gorgeous end product. Really happy with the way this turned out. Couldn't be any more happy with it. Other than these scratches, and those are from the flat skew, I need to sharpen that thing. But overall, really happy the way they turned out. So hope you guys got something out of this. Hope you guys are enjoying this. I finished this back in mid-May of 2021. You guys are probably not watching this until October, November. Hope everybody's having a good holiday season. And guys, don't forget to subscribe. Trying to get to 1,000. And I'll see you guys in the next project. Peace. Okay, so project's done. Here it is, all nice, neat, completed. And, for a salvage project that almost fucking got away from me, this actually turned out really cool. You can unfortunately see some scratches that are in the surface layer of the epoxy, and I think that was from either the flat skew or their leftover residual marks from when we had just the green piece on its own. But overall, man, really happy the way this turned out. You get these cool green translucent colors, and there's like 3 different layers of epoxies. The bottom looks absolutely fucking fantastic. But overall, for a salvage project, it turned out really cool. So I'm going to start doing a lot more of these different colored epoxy projects in the future. Hope you guys got something out of it. Today is May 23rd, 2021. Don't forget to subscribe. We're trying to get to 1,000 before the end of the year. God knows when this is going to be published, November, December, sometime in the fall. But there it is, all nice, neat, and complete. Might call this the Joker Bowl. But we're going to come back and do another one of these for sure. So hope you liked it. Don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next project. Peace.